All right, good evening. If you can hear me, could you let me know in the chat box, please? All right, great. Welcome everyone. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Basically, the purpose for us meeting here, I've taught this class a couple times. The purpose for us meeting today, basically just make sure that answer any questions toward the end of the course type stuff. But the biggest thing will be to go over the anchor assessment. So I'm trying to take a look at everybody here. If trying to mute everybody. And if you need to speak, and that's perfectly okay, maybe let me know in the chat box, and I can unmute you or whatever. But like I said, the biggest thing, you should be able to see my screen with our Moodle site. It might be look slightly different than yours, just because mine obviously has the professor end of it a little bit, but it should look quite a bit like yours. But so I'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, a lot of this is basically to go make sure that everybody is comfortable and understands everything for the anchor assessment. Taught this a couple times. I'm not getting a lot of questions on some of the other assignments, but that is one that I get some questions from time to time. Before I forget, I am recording this session, so right here under week 12, either later this evening, if not this evening, definitely by first thing tomorrow morning. All the details here for the go-to meeting will disappear, and a link for the recording will be put in its place if you need to listen to any of these details again. So overall, excellent job up to this point. For the most part, everybody's caught up. We've had our two interviews. The school principal and the school guidance counselor already completed. If you've submitted that, I've recorded that grade in there. So this coming Thursday, I just realized I've misspelled Thursday here, but under week 12. But this coming Thursday, 2 days from now, your third and final interview is due with a Family Resource Center director or Family Resource Center worker to interview one of those in your building or someone in your district and upload that. And then basically after that is the last couple items for the remainder of the course. The following week, a week from this Thursday on the 16th, you have one portion of your anchor assessment that's due. That portion of the anchor assessment is just the review of literature. I'm going to go over all those details for the anchor assessment, but just the review of the literature portion of it is due during week 13. And then that's once again that's due on the 16th. And then for the most part, you have about 2 weeks or maybe just a little bit less than 2 weeks to finish everything up. Notice in week 14, technically, is Thanksgiving break in there. I intentionally tried not to put too much on you guys that, basically after week 13, you are essentially just finishing up the details of your anchor assessment and the field experience document. So let's jump into those. Basically, what I'm going to be going over um, is under week 14 and 15. I'm going to go over the field experience document and then the anchor assessment document here. So first under weeks 14 and 15, here's the document for the required field experience. I believe all or most of you have taken me for EDA 606 before. It's the same form. Remember, just document the date of the field experience. Give me a short description. I have somebody sign off saying they did some work with you. You remember. Hopefully you have these done by now, but anything that's administrative related, working with a principal, counselor, family review service center director. This obviously is a community systems and resources. So a lot of classes will want a lot of information, a lot of those hours to be with a principal. But in this course, I definitely feel like it'd be relevant for you to any time that you spent helping a family resource center director or a guidance counselor would be very appropriate. But those 10 hours, document that, and then when you're done with documenting all 10 of the hours, as it says under weeks 14 and 15 here, make sure you upload that into two places. One in Moodle here, so I can give you credit for it. But number two, the course requirement is that you do go to live text and put that information in there as well, so that it's documented. So it's mandatory fun for the course that you do both of those. Obviously in Moodle to get the points, but then you can't pass the course unless you've done all 10 of these hours and you've uploaded it into live text. Let's see, Matt says he's having Wi-Fi issues and it keeps dropping signal. I have to log back in. No problem. Matt, you may or may not be able to hear me, but as I mentioned a moment ago, under week 12, later this evening or first thing tomorrow morning, I will put the recording of this under week 12. So no problem. Let me type that in to Matt here. All right, so then the other part of it, once again, is this description of anchor assessment 6. So I'll pull that up. So basically, try not to make this more difficult. I've tried to spell it out as much as I can. Once again, I believe all or most of you have taken me for EDA 606 before. Very similar to the anchor assessment, the formatting and everything for 606. I try to spell out the course requirements with this information here. So if you follow everything exactly as it's laid out here, you should do fine. As it says toward the bottom of this should be your anchor assessment should be 12 font times New Roman. That's a typo. Times Roman numeral. That's not accurate. Should be times New Roman. Double spaced. Try to use APA is the best that you can. This isn't a doctorate thesis, so I'll give you a little bit of latitude on APA style and all that type of stuff. But definitely try to follow this as much as you can. So first, your anchor assessment should be a separate title page. After the title page, then give me a short introduction. All these headings as I have here that are numbered, you don't necessarily have to number them, but do use a lot of those headings. Introduction, put introduction, give me, a short, informative, powerful description of it. Skip a line or two and review a literature. Your 5 pages for this. This is the one that's due during week 13. Everyone's review of literature should be about, let's see, complete review of literature describing what the literature says about parent and community involvement in schools. Everyone's review of lit will be about parent and community involvement in schools. So you're going to need to find different sources for that. Articles, online websites are okay. I do lean toward using different articles and stuff like that. Our book that we've used in class definitely is something that can be used, but so 5 pages on that. So to basically just tell what's the information out there. I would recommend you do read multiple things, take all that information from those various articles for a 5-page review of lit. That's probably going to be the most difficult part of this anchor assessment. In my experience, those of you who have the most questions about the essential questions, just list the essential questions that you can think of when it comes to school and community relations. What are some questions that you might ask yourself? What are some of the, I'm listing some of these now. What are some of the resources that are out there to help promote school and community relations? What does our Family Resource Center offer our student body to limit the barriers to learning? Those are the type of things I'm looking for. So this should just be essential questions. Should just be a short list of questions that one might ask themselves when going through this process. The fifth thing, once again, put a heading: identification of the school community. With those bullets there, go ahead and describe your school demographics, your staff demographics, and any information that you can think about parents. Definitely, if you're in a public school, Kentucky Department of Education is going to be a good resource for you. Once again, if you're a public school, your school report card is going to be a good resource for you. It lists a lot of that information already on there. Don't reinvent the wheel for that, but you do need to share that school student, staff, and potentially parent demographics that you can access and make available. Number 6, the heading: key findings of the community systems resources. In this section, you just need to describe in detail the community systems and resources that are utilized in your school. So what resources are in your school? Do you guys have any obviously, I would go to your school counselor. Maybe that's something you learned when you interviewed your counselor. What are some of the resources they use for the community? Definitely your Family Use Service Center, if you have one of those in your school or in your district. Make a list some of those, describe some of those resources that are available to the students in your school and to I guess not just the students, but the families. I'll be sure to describe the process that you use to identify those. So how did you identify them in the first place? Just talk about how you did your research by speaking with some of those different entities in your school building. Number 7, and once again, feel free to please ask questions in the chat box if you have any as I'm going through these. Number 7, the social, historical, and political conditions. But once again, I've listed the bulleted points here. Make sure in your write-up in this section, be able to answer some of the things that I've described in those bulleted points. If you fully encompass doing this, you're going to do well, as long as you specifically address all of the criteria listed in good grammar, punctuation, all that. Like I said, you're going to do great. Describe the process used to become informed on the social, historical, and political conditions in your school community. Describe the social, historical, and political conditions in your school community, and the process. I guess the first one is the process that you use to get informed on in the first place, and then describe some of those opportunities that you have. So every school has their different things that go on, no matter if you're in elementary, middle school, or high school, with athletics, with arts related things, with music, chorus. Maybe you have archery, your PTO, your site-based council, and some of those different types of things. And says, is there a set number of sources we need for the lit review? Though there is not a list of those, a number of sources that you must have or that's required for this. I will say, you're probably going to need quite a few. What's quite a few? I don't know. I'd say at least 8 to 10 to come up with 5 pages of information. If I look at your review of lit and you only have 3 or 4 of them, you really pulled a lot of information from a very small handful of sources. So, although I'm not going to quantify it, Aaron, to get 5 pages worth of information, you're going to need, I'm going to think at least 8 or 10 of them, is my opinion for something like that. But no, there's not a specific requirement for that, but good question. Number 8, then, describe the school community barriers. Describe in detail any relevant barriers that are roadblocks in improving the participation in your school community. Some of those that come from that come to mind or that other people in other classes have described of the barriers for improving the participation in the school community. Is there a language barrier? Do you guys have a low socioeconomic status? And for some of those people in the community and parents to be involved, transportation to come to the school in the first place is difficult. So describe those. Once again, that's going to be a little different in every school. Some of those I can see it being similar, but depending on your specific school, just describe in detail what some of those barriers are. Then the last couple things, number 9, next steps. Describe the steps that can be taken to improve or in some cases maintain the participation in your school community. So here's where you're going to brainstorm brainstorm some next steps on what can we do as a school to help improve the participation at some of our events. Are you charging admission into some of these things and maybe you decrease the cost? Maybe you publicize them in different mediums a little bit better. In my experience, if you feed them, they typically will come. Different things like that to help the participation. Describe the next steps that can be used to improve, maintain the relationships from the various members of the school community. So once again, try to describe some of those in your next steps. And then the last couple things, give me a short reflection. Reflect on what you gained from going through this process in the course, from bringing together some of those resources. Maybe there were some resources that you were not aware of. I don't have a counseling background, but I remember as I got a little more seasoned in the administrative world, I wasn't aware of all the resources that our counselors and our family resource center directors had for our families. So so for me, if I was writing a reflection, I know that a lot of my reflecting would go about of really open my eyes to some of the resources that are out there. But so talk about the process that you use, what you gain from this, what you hope to take from this course, or specifically going through all this through your research and through your developing next steps. What do you plan to take with you, hopefully to a principal position down the road? Type up a short conclusion, then a reference page. Obviously, the rubric that's being used is below here, but for the most part, guys, if you 12 font, Times New Roman, double space, APA is good, you have good grammar, punctuation, you describe, use all these headings and you describe in detail the information that it asks for in each of those sections, you're going to do well. That I assure you of. And your review of lit, once again, is due a week from Thursday. So you're in week 13 here, when it's due on Thursday the 16th. If you're way off base on your review of literature, I'm going to let you know when I provide you some feedback on there. If you don't get a lot of feedback on there, it means you're on the right track, you're doing fine. But this is kind of my opportunity here. If somebody's review of literature is just way off base, it'll be my opportunity to let you know before you submit it with your anchor assessment. So once again, to sum up a few things, week 12, you have your final interview write-up is due during week 12, is due 2 days from now. Week 13, your anchor assessment number 6, the review of literature, the 5 pages of that. that is due. That is due here during week 13. I hope to within a day or two. Definitely by that weekend. The hopefully 18th or 19th at the latest. I turn around and provide you some feedback, give you some details or some sort of follow up on your review of literature. You'll be able to take that review of literature, add it to your anchor assessment, and all the other details that are described in this document here under week 14 and 15. Take the review of literature, all the other details, put it together in one culminating project, and then upload that here into Moodle. Please note a lot of our assignments have been due on Thursdays in this course. Please note the due date is Monday, December the 4th in here. Guys, I think there's 35 of you, I think, in this course, so it's going to take me a while to get 35 of these when they're probably going to be, I'd say for some of you could be 10 pages or more times 35 of you. These are going to take me a while to get through because I hope to have them all graded by that Thursday, the 7th, I think it'll be. So please note before you go to bed, I guess, on that Monday, I'm not going to be checking, hey, it's midnight on Monday and you didn't turn it in 0. No, I'm not even going to look at them until Tuesday morning. So if you need to stay up all night doing it, please feel free to do so. And then lastly, 5 bonus points for the course evaluation, just like in our 606 class. You do the course evaluation. I want your feedback. You do that, you're going to get five bonus points for all that. But okay, so I'm going to be quiet for a minute. Please feel free to ask me questions over the next couple weeks in the chat box, and I'd like to answer those. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute or so and give everybody the opportunity to ask any questions they might have.
I have a question. This is Gwen Courtney.
Sure, Gwen, go ahead.
In 606, when we had to reflect on the TEL survey and pick a category, do you know what I'm talking about? And do our anchor assessment, we had to do the lit review.
Correct.
Mine was on parent and community involvement. So I was wondering if I could use some of my lit review from that, or do you want me to start all over from scratch?
No, you're perfectly fine. I'm not a proponent of reinventing the wheel. I will also say while you bring that up, when you guys take 611, I believe next semester, the anchor assessment in that one is taking a lot of the information from the 606 anchor assessment and the 608 anchor assessment. I think you'll find the 611 anchor assessment quite easy because a lot of the information's already been done. So to answer your question, Gwen, no, you would be fine with doing so with what you're describing.
Okay, I think I just need to add probably more. I think mine was mainly focused on the parent part because our parent issues are so lacking here. So I think
Right.
I focus more on that than the community. So I would just need to add some parts to that.
Obviously, I'm not looking at it, but from what you're describing, that sounds accurate. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Anybody else? If you feel free to speak up if you would like, or if describing your question in the chat boxes would be easier for you, please do either of those. Once again, the reason I'm doing this is the last time I taught the course, I got a lot of positive feedback on the book and some of that stuff. But the thing that I did get some people asking was they wanted the opportunity for me. Numerous, I won't say numerous, but a handful of people said, a couple weeks before it was due, to have had it described to them and had the opportunity to ask some questions. So once again, from past students, I'm taking that feedback and doing this here. So this is all I have, folks, for tonight. I feel like the course, in my opinion, has went very well. Everyone's up to speed on that one. But now then, I think this time I'm even starting to get a few emails from a few of you with questions that are specific to the anchor assessment. I knew this was the opportune time to go over all this stuff because that's where everyone's focus is. I think more than half of you have already turned in your your family resource center work or what do you want to call it, interview. So I think a lot of people's focus is obviously going on to the last thing of the course besides the observation hours with the acre assessment. So now that everyone's focus is going toward that, definitely wanted to give everybody the opportunity. So um, listen, if you're done for the evening and you feel like you have your head wrapped around the expectations for the anchor assessment, you are free to go. Remember, and I think most of you know this by now. For most of you, this is the second course with me. If you have questions, listen, shoot me an email. If we need to set up a phone call or something because email is too difficult, I'm obviously very willing to do that. But shoot me an email at my Georgetown email, please. I check it quite regularly. Um, but other than that, if you feel like you have all the information you need to perform or to complete your anchor assessment fully, you're free to go. Otherwise, I'm gonna stay behind a little bit to answer any other questions. Thanks, folks. Hope each and every one of you have a great Thanksgiving and a blessed day.
There, I have a question.
Is this Katie? Is that right?
It's Katie.
Yeah. Go ahead, Katie.
There's a couple of us that ask questions in the chat box,
Oh,
but I don't know if you're just not seeing them or.
well, on my screen the chat box is small, so I apologize for that. Okay, I'm not seeing them. All I'm seeing is the last one I saw was Aaron. Okay, I apologize. Leslie asked, are we allowed to refer to some of the articles we read for our reflections? Yes, Leslie. Apologize for that. Yeah, you can refer to any of the articles we've already used in this class for articles that we've written that you were asked to read and reflect on. So all of those are fair game. Katie, are essential questions geared toward our own school? How we, our school, can maintain a yes, 100%. You are hit the nail on the head. These questions, Katie, yes, are geared toward your school specifically. Uh, Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Let's see, Brandon, have a thanks day. Thanks. Sorry about that, guys. Those questions, I thought I was at the bottom, and I was not. Okay, I think I've covered all of them. Are any of you? Looks like 5 or 6 of you are left here. Um, Anything else I can add for any of you all? Judy, looks like you're the last one on here. Any? Okay, I'm sure. Let's see. I'm fine. I like to make sure I get the maximum information. Hey, no problem, Judy. You have a good evening.